All right, hey gang, this is Mike from Power BI Tips. We're doing our MVPs React session again. It's the April release time. I think it was the desktop was released this Friday last week. We're finally getting around. It's been a busy week, and we're getting a bunch of MVPs together to talk about the desktop release. So we're gonna jump right in, and let's go through the introductions for all the MVPs. So let me transition here to a new screen. And I think we've got all our MVPs. Let's do a quick sound check. Daniel, would you mind just giving me a quick hello?
Am I always first? Hello.
Well, you just, the way the squares fall on the screen, you're now kind of up in the upper left-hand corner. So I guess you're going to be the first one. I think we've got good audio. And for those of you on YouTube, if you have any audio issues, please let us know in the chat so I can fix and resolve some stuff. But we'll start our way. Daniel, go ahead and lead us off. Give us your brief introduction, and if you're speaking or doing anything recently.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Daniel. I'm based in Canterbury, which is New Zealand South Island. It's quite early in the morning here, but not as early as Darren. I have just finished my sessions at the Power BI Summit this week, which were really good. And I was talking about a visual that I've been building for Power BI called Deneb, which is kind of like an R or a Python visual, which allows you to write code in the Vega or Vega-like language, which is a JSON-based format, but you can build some incredibly rich charts. Kind of overshadowed a little bit by a major release by Microsoft last week, but still very excited about it.
I think it's super incredible, and the fact that it's so extensible, and the stuff, and you can do. Man, it really fits on the spectrum of custom and non-custom. It's a super cool tool, so I can't wait to dig in, get my feet wet a little bit more. We'll go on over to Stephen Campbell. Go ahead, bud. Give us an introduction.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Steve Campbell. I'm actually in the UK, so late at night for me here. Just moved back, been over in the States for the last 10 years, actually in Milwaukee with Mike as well.
Woo!
So, yeah, repping there. So nice to be back. Back in here, back by London. I'm presenting next week my Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate user group, which is part of the Power BI Tips Brew City. We'll post the link in the chat. So that's going on Monday. Got a really cool guest speaker who's walking us through in 1 hour how to build this awesome app. It's a manufacturing orders app. So looking forward to that, learning a bit more about Power Apps as well and spreading the knowledge.
Yeah, tight integration between all the tools. You get to go home, and again, I think this is correct. You get to have fish and chips now, right? That's the thing. I don't even know if that's right or not. All right.
Chips and a beer.
I miss fish and chips a lot.
There we go. Stefan, or Steven, I guess it would be the English way of saying it. Give us your introduction. Are you speaking anywhere recently?
Hello, everyone. I greet you from Night Prague. And in this particular moment, I have no English session, but I'm trying to communicate about one for Power Break. So
awesome.
Be tuned. Everything will be published. I hope soon.
Rockin'. All right, excellent. Tommy Pugla out of Chicago. Go ahead, bud.
Oh, that's how I was going to start it with. I'm Tommy out of Chicago, but
it's totally cool.
That's all I got.
I stole your thunder. That's it. We're over. All right, we can end the call now.
Yeah. All right. My name's Tommy Puglia. I'm based in Chicago. I lead the Chicago Power BI user group here downtown. When there used to be a thing called downtown, we have our next meeting on April 27th. That we're actually doing a joint with the Milwaukee Brew Crew.
Yeah, we are.
We're talking about basically why people don't look at your reports or your dashboards or reports and ways to fix it.
Awesome. That's going to be a cool topic. So Tommy and I have been partnering up. We're like, hey, we're doing a lot of work, making a lot of content here, and we're doing it all on the internet. So we should just share content a bit more. So we're getting Tommy to speak. It's going to be an amazing session. Tommy's a great speaker, super involved with just deploying, getting your reports across your organization. So super helpful. And the man himself, Darren, come on. Who's that guy?
Yeah, so Darren Gospel from Melbourne, Australia. It's as we often joke on the start of the call. I'm coming to you from the future because it's Friday morning here.
It is. Awesome.
So yeah, it's just turned 7 a.m. here.
And did you just
which is nice.
Did you just were you speaking at the Power BI Summit as well?
I was, yes. And I didn't speak on Deck Studio.
What?
I did a talk sort of on data modeling versus DAX, because I see a
Oh.
lot of questions in forums where people are trying to solve problems with DAX and their issue is their data model's wrong.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Their data model could be improved
Yeah,
and it would make their DAX a lot easier.
I would agree with that. A little bit more data engineering, right, on the SQL side or the in Power Query would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that brings us around to let's talk about this month's release. There's a lot of really rich features here, and a couple in desktop, but I feel like a ton just across the spectrum. So, anyone want to pick up any particular topics that you have been playing with, something that you're passionate about?
I feel like the main one is the Power Automate visual now available, and I think it's all about basically like what you can do with it. I cannot wait to see all the blogs and the content. I've personally been waiting for something like this because I've been using I forgot who created the custom visual, like the star rating, and trying to do like a net promoter score or in my reports. But now this makes it so much easier where we can just basically say how would you recommend this report, use a what if parameter, and just send it out easily to a SharePoint list. So that's what I've been using it so far, but I can't imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, this is the thing that I think Power BI has not been traditionally good at, is just I can't get data out of it. Like it's a viewing kind of tool, and you could bolt in a Power Apps to kind of start manipulating data, but there really wasn't a good push mechanism. And this is the first time we're seeing a solid visual to push data out of Power BI. Tommy, how does the Power App visual grab data from? Does it actually grab data from the data model, and can you kind of whisk that away with a Power Automate action?
Yeah. So, and I actually imagine that the Power Automate visual is going to be more used, and probably there's going to be more content and more impactful than the Power App visual.
Oh, really?
But
okay.
yeah, that's what I just foresee, because it's a lot easier. Usually you have to either create an app or, when you connect to the Power App with the visual, I think it's not that it's not difficult, but it's more cumbersome. But with the Automate visual, like I set it up probably in 5 minutes, where I put in a measure for the username.
Yep.
I put a value of, again, like a 1 through 7, and I put in like a report name, and just triggering that in the Power BI report, sending it to a list. I just see there's going to be so many like small cases where it's like notify somebody about this. But no, it just grabs, everything from the data set. If there's multiple records, if it's a table rather than just a single value, it will automatically know to apply to each.
Oh,
Okay.
So, cool.
Yeah, which could probably run into problems, but again, I just see this is going to be, I don't know what you guys think, but I just see this being way more impactful than the Power App visual.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, we do a lot with the Power Apps into Power BI, and as you say, pretty much the Power App, most of what we use it for is a wrapper to access the Power Automate. You want to take that action. This is so much easier. You don't need a Power Apps developer. You don't need any of that,
and the licensing is different too, right? So for this one, again, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I mean, so in Power Apps, if a Power App user needs to see Power Apps in a Power BI report, you have to have a Power BI app license for it to work.
Power App license, yeah.
I think I got that right.
Yeah, and you need to share.
You have to share the
app with
correct. It's a permission thing too, right? That user needs to be able to. Yeah. And then on the flip side, though, for the Power Automate, you can use maybe the free Automate version. I'm not sure if that's exactly how they call it, but if it's a SharePoint list, like Tommy, like what you're doing, you're whisking data out to SharePoint. That's kind of just out of the box, ready to go.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to be. That's why it's going to be adopted.
Yeah, because it's free.
Well, you pay for it, but it's somewhere. The cost.
You'll get a 90-day trial and just extend it.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Stephen, you were saying?
No, it's okay. And when you are speaking how it's changing the licensing, even it's changing the license behind the Power Automate which you need, because even before the Power Automate as a visual, you was able to call it as itself. You could create the button and push through them something inside the Power Automate thanks to HTTP received trigger.
Yes.
So the way how to provide the same was here already before, but thanks to this visual, you really don't have to have premium license for Power Automate. That's great because it's really changing the way how to use Power Automate with a Power BI.
I would totally agree to that one. I think it's slick. Has anyone, I've heard of a use case where people want to do trigger refresh, like on demand. Has anyone's, I know people have played with it, but have you guys built one that actually you hit the button and then it refreshes the data set, and then eventually you could refresh the page and the report would be clean again, or like whatever the new data is, right?
Yep. We've implemented this inside our report for, I would say, 6 months ago through the HTTP received.
Sure.
We was just calling the API for BI service and refreshing the exact data set.
Sure.
Because it was the easy way for a user. They don't have to go inside the workspace and click on a refresh. They just bound that button.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome.
I see this visual really taking that last step in kind of the analytics cycle, that prescriptive step that you get to take action, I think. Because we've had a lot, it's great at that descriptive discovery, finding the insights. You have that built-in AI predictiveness. I think this is, helping bridge that gap now. We can get a filtered data set and press a button, take action on the context we're looking at. And I think that's the really, really cool stuff. We're clicking on this bar chart, we've got a couple of filters, and it's that exact context. We can get that data, push it to another data set. I've seen people export it. You can send it to a flow and do an email campaign. It's Microsoft's one. There's so much. I, as Tommy said, I think there's going to be a ton of blogs, and we're just going to, in the next few months, see some awesome, really, creative use cases.
I'm holding you all accountable. Blogs from each one of you about Power Automate now. Awesome.
I already catch up one blog that was using Power Automate for a write back function when it was pushing data inside a SharePoint list.
Sure.
And meanwhile, while it was pushing inside a SharePoint list, it was also pushing data through XML endpoint to a data set. So you could see the result in real time from the SharePoint.
Oh, that's cool. Really neat. Awesome. All right. Other updates this month. Let's keep going.
Charticulator.
All right, come on.
When Tommy said the best visual company, I thought he was going to say Charticulator.
So that thing's still.
I'm convinced on Power Automate though.
Yeah, that thing's still below. I mean, Power Automate's awesome, but I mean, I've been playing with Charticulator as the external application on a website. Awesome, super amazing. It does things. To me, this is the missing gap between like where Power BI plays with like this kind of pre-built defined visuals, and then where Tableau plays, which is like you can dream it, you can build it kind of thing. And I think that's kind of like that's been their MO on the play for the tool. But now we're looking like this, to me, changes that a lot and closes the gap immensely. I have access to the data model. I can then grab whatever fields I want. And I've been so excited. I've been live streaming for the last 6 days about the things that you can do in Charticulator that it still blows my mind. Like this is what I thought we should have had this like a way earlier, this graphical drag and drop experience around glyphs and points on the map. And so it's awesome. So if you haven't checked out the series, go check out, or I'll throw in the little, make sure you like and subscribe so we can on the YouTube channel. I'm continually putting out more videos around particularly Charticulator. And another, I won't kill the conversation. Let's talk some more about Charticulator before we move on to other amazing visuals that are coming out this month. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think you've done a really good lead in there, and the stuff you're doing on YouTube, Mike, is really good. It's really exploratory, and I think that's quite good for people that are new. Like one of the things about Charticulator is it flips the idea on its head. Instead of choosing a predefined visual, you're able to get a UI-based access to what we call like visualization grammar. So you can think a certain way and build a visual up from components and layer those components on top of each other and bind those components to data elements. And once you learn to think a little bit differently, it becomes really, really powerful. And that's one of the things that really drew me to it. Like, I think I remember seeing it get announced. I remember seeing you'd posted about it, so much so that you'd got your own implementation, your own fork of it.
Yes, I did.
Charts for Power BI tips. Layla at Redicat had posted about it, and I just went, yep, I'm into this.
Yes.
Because as a visual developer, that's, it's much more preferable to stay higher level than write code. I love writing code, but I don't think everybody does. And at the same time, I think when we write code, it's much the same thing with the core visuals. If I build a custom visual,
yes,
you're still confined to how I think. I may not understand your use case. And one of the challenges with these visuals is it's really hard to, catch all the use cases. When I develop a visual, I can have a visual working in a couple of hours, but to actually make it robust, it can take hundreds.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the money goes with these Power BI visuals. So when you've got a tool like Charticulator that allows you to build your own bespoke visuals, it's almost like the Power Automate visual. Those integration scenarios are so bespoke. Before that visual came in, you could do it with Power Automate or web services or other things, but you just get a little more democracy involved. And it's great because people can then have so much control over, their domain. And I've been using it for a couple of years. I really love it. And I think, I have some long overdue things I need to write up as well, or maybe get involved with you on and do some things.
Oh, it's happening.
It's awesome.
It's happening. Like I'm tapping Daniel on the shoulder already. I'm super jazzed about it. I loved the code so much. I whipped out to GitHub. I ripped a branch off of it and started putting it on my own site. And my only grievance is the name. I don't like the name. You could have just gone with charts or like, VizChart or anything else. I think it's okay. It stands out really well. It's very easy to internet Google search. I totally get that, but I sorely disagree with the name.
I'm not a marketer. I like the name though.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm not in marketing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the on the website? They have like their white papers or their resources section to learn more.
Oh.
If you think the name's bad, try reading one of those. You're like, okay, So no, I really hope too with now this being a custom visual available to more people or available to everyone who's using Power BI, that the gallery and the examples becomes a lot more robust, because I know that Mike, you've done a lot of work on that, and trying to have a gallery, but I think that needs to be a huge part of the adoption
yes.
of it, is seeing the examples. Because yes. I've been in it. I'm probably going to do a lot more now, but I've tried a few things, and obviously it's not nearly as straightforward as a lot of the other tools that we use.
Yes, agreed.
So I think the examples out there, having somewhere to actually post these, is hopefully going to grow the adoption just for what you can do with it, not just
yes.
The standard visuals, like it's a visual just a different way.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really solve much of a purpose, but it's more the how much this can impact, like you said, like the action. So
yes,
it's more about building and exploring. So with visuals, there are use cases for visuals, right? A bar chart does a certain thing well, a line chart does a certain thing well, but what we can't do easily is explore our data, visually. We can do a little bit in, say, Power Query with some of the statistics and things, but you could drag something onto a canvas and start to play around with it and see what works and adapt and evolve. And that's just something that isn't there in predefined charts.
Yes.
And that's the real fun element of it. There's some incredibly, and I work with Discovery Eye out in Australia, and they have the environmental industry has some incredibly established charts that are standard across the industry that you just can't build with standard, businessy charts. You just can't do it. So, the solution we have before is that I write code, which is great for me because I get to play and create awesome things, but they're very hard to share. And immediately, those examples are kind of crucial to that adoption, and we've got to get more of those out there, I think.
Tommy, I'm to your point. Like, if you think about even the Power BI ecosystem, right? If you think about people who know a lot of information about data modeling, and then for every one data modeler, right, you've got maybe like for a 1-to-5 ratio of report builders, right? I know how to build reports. I'm not going to be the expert in modeling data. And then if you go beyond that ring to like the furthest ring, you now have like the report consumers. And so for every 5 report, and Tommy, you know this because you do this deployment stuff all the time, that ring that audience gets larger and larger every time we go here. And I think you made a really good point where Charticulator and the templates, that's the key part. And so I'm working with Daniel right now to figure out how do we make that, democratize that as much as we possibly can already. And so I already have a gallery. So the charts program that I kind of put charts at PowerBI.tips, it's charts.powerbi.tips is the URL. We actually now have a gallery of stuff that I've made in that tool that we've made a gallery for you. So the goal here is to figure out how do we extend the Charticulator custom visual to make it easy for you to share visuals that you made without not necessarily sharing like company data, because that's like the really no thing you want to do here. Like I don't want like, I don't need a distinct list of all your customers' names in a Charticulator app that's being exported, right? We need to kind of remove that sensitive data from there. And I think that's really the nuanced hard portion of this when you want to share things. But in the same respect with Power BI growing with audience, there's a couple developers that are amazing. Daniel is an amazing I am good at this, but I'm not nowhere near Daniel's capability and being able to think and like visually use that language to draw a chart that's so creative. Another guy, Nick Snap, I don't know what he does. I think he's a visual developer, like that's what he does, but he understands the tool at a level that I don't understand. And he comes up with visuals that are like way beyond, and I've copied some of his work and thought, I just need to learn what this guy's doing. And I think you're going to see that there's going to be a couple. And so part of the series that I'm doing on YouTube now is just, I want to talk to Nick Snap. I want to talk, hey Nick, if you're watching, this one's for you, buddy. Give me a holler. I want to get you on the season 1 of Charticulator, man. And Daniel, Daniel, you got to get on there. We got to go in. We got to talk about what you're building. Like, how do we do this stuff? Because there's going to be a couple creators and there's going to be a lot more consumers. And the only way we get everyone using this thing is, to steal a word from Elon Musk, we have to build the machine to build the machine. And that's what Charticulator is. It's a machine that we're using to create other little machines, so it'll grow like crazy. Awesome. Really good conversation there. Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry, Campbell. Steve Campbell. There's two Steves.
I think just going back to a point Daniel was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And, it is a difficult tool. And I'll be honest, the first time I saw it when it came out and on the web version, I gave up. I spent about 3 hours and I had this circle and things were pointing off, and I was just trying to make a bar chart. But it was a really, really good point Daniel said is you've just got to change your way of thinking, layers, binding to data.
Yes.
There's some key elements. And I think if you're interested, spend a few hours, watch my series.
Yeah.
Invest just a few hours learning about how to think. And I think then it becomes a lot easier.
Yes.
It's one of those, it's not intuitive just to pick up and click and play.
Agreed.
A few hours spent of just learning how it works will absolutely change your experience.
And that's the whole video series is geared towards that. Like it was like these are the learnings that I went through that were like painful for me to figure the stuff out, and like it was hard to figure out how to make a graph. It was hard I feel like just building basic bar charts initially is the right way to go. Like we wanted to start basic charts first, because once you understand how to create those, then your mind starts opening up and saying, oh, okay, I now get how I can make one of these things work. The mechanism or the mechanics are formed in your mind. Now you can start extending that, adding additional labels. And I think your first couple of visuals are, I made a bar chart and I put text on it, but now the text is rotated 90 degrees. I can't do that in desktop. I just can't. So like you're just doing little tweaks on things that are over and above. And then as you get more into it and get a little more time, then it starts like, oh my gosh, this thing's really, you can do anything you want in here. Like another, someone commented, I want to be able to do measure-driven visual properties on data labels. You can't do that in desktop very well. You can to a degree, but it's kind of a challenge. Charticulator makes that super easy. You just drop in a data column, show or hide, or what data you want on or off. Like it changes the game, I think, a lot for what's going on visually.
Yeah, I think to cap on that, think about, if you think of yourself as a developer and a creator in Power BI and how you've learned, you had to start to understand how to do dimensional modeling. You had to understand how to do transformations and how to clean your data and how to structure it. And you think where you began and where you are now, and that practice really pays off. And it's really just the same for the visual component of Power BI. You now have the ability to upskill, not just pick stuff,
Yes.
but upskill and tell better stories. And one thing I mentioned in my talk at the start of the week, which I think is relevant to this, is, you know, as a creator, you know just how, and Steve's got a great post about the iceberg, right? Where all these projects, you know, so much of it is wrangling data, modeling data, making it work so that it serves the visuals. But from a business user perspective, from a stakeholder perspective, that's their window to your work. So you should really put a lot of care and attention into the visual side. It's not always good to just pull things in and stick them up and go, hey, there's a pie chart, particularly a pie chart. There's a bar chart. There's a line chart. You know,
There, thank you. You corrected quickly there.
How do I elevate my visuals so that my users, my consumers, my stakeholders really get to the root of what they want to know? And that's how you got to think about it.
Daniel, I will say, because I've been thinking about this, as you said, one, I completely agree with what you said is a different way of thinking. Everyone learned data modeling and filter context because they had to in order for their reports to work. You know, this is a little different because, and even for me personally, I think we expressed before it was custom visual, like that way of thinking, or that it was almost like, well, what was harder to learn, this or filter context the first time? And it's almost that same, you really have to like rotate just the way you're kind of approaching it. That's why I just think hopefully what Mike's doing is examples, use cases outside of just a bar chart, because, you know, from someone using Power BI who may not be as visually inept, you know, from that way of thinking, is like, so it took you an hour to do a bar chart, or I can drag one, you know. It's like, so thinking about how much more impact can this deliver to your report, and how. And I think that's going to be the biggest. So
and to build on that, think about how long you might take searching the properties pane for something in a pre-canned visual, right? To do what you want. When you go back and think, oh, I could have probably figured that out in an hour in Charticulator. Hindsight's great. I get that. But sometimes you just got to think, how much time do I spend trying to bend things to my will? Yes. There are some amazing people doing stuff with DAX calculation groups to make the core visuals work how they want, and that is fantastic. You know, and at its core, Charticulator is still a custom visual, essentially.
Oh no!
I think that it dropped.
It might have dropped you.
Oh.
We're getting to the best part. He was going to give us.
Right.
That was it. It was the single insight. Oh, he came back.
Coming and going.
No. And that, folks, is how you learn everything in Charticulator in 45 minutes. Sorry, Daniel, you cut out there for a second, bud. Oh, it's still having trouble.
It's an interesting parallel, though. I was thinking that there is a growth. People start just dragging, you know, their raw files, and they've got a data model with one table.
Yes.
And then you start to learn that makes my DAX hard, and then I'll model it, and I have to start a date table, and you start adding other context around it.
Sure.
It's sort of the same. Hopefully, it's the same with the visuals. We'll see a maturing where people start off dragging a custom visual in, but then when you want to take it further, we've now got tools like Charticulator, and
that's a great point. And to your point though, like modeling is very mature. I mean, that's been around. You know, MDX grew into tabular, and so tabular's been around since 2011. Is that a right date? I don't even know when it like officially kind of came out.
Yep, the Gemini project in 2011.
So we've got 10 years on model development, and so that's why we see like people having standards and like things that have aligned here. We're now just seeing the birth of, you know, Tableau's been doing this for a while, so there's probably some standards around that. But now we're talking about like bespoke visual building. This is a new realm for a lot of us because we were just content to zip around Excel, drop a bunch of tables in, and go to town on the properties.
Modeling is still very important, though. That really drives the visuals. Still got to think. Still goes back to the root.
One thing I find here that's interesting.
Flag, Mike.
Oh, sorry, say again.
Thinking about it. I was just saying we should probably flag. We're going to talk some more about Charticulator next month, right?
Yes, actually, that's a great point. So Daniel and I are participating in the Microsoft Business Application Summit. If you go to LinkedIn and look for Power BI tips, there's actually an event there that we're going to help you kind of easily find the link. But you can go to the Microsoft Business Application Summit, and we're going to freeform. I think we're going to do a table talk around just Charticulator, pick our brains. We're going to be playing in the tool and talking with people about how to use it, the concepts around it, and how this extends things.
What I hope you guys do, and especially the content that you do next, Mike, because I'll be watching, is like when you go into like what are you trying to do, like kind of the end goal. Because one of those, if you go on a blank slate and learning it, you know. So I hope that's what a lot of the content that people start coming out with, like, you know, this was the problem, here's the solution I'm trying to solve.
That's a good point.
So.
You'll find my videos are more like how to make the mechanics go, and less about like I'm trying to make this insight and make that appear like I'm trying to answer a question with the visual. And that's something that I haven't done yet. There's a lot of good questions like on the YouTubes and people asking questions about it. So we're probably gonna like maybe dive more into that. And Tommy, if there are things that like whiteboard them. I know Jeff Weir, I guess he's also out of New Zealand. There must be a lot of good things out of New Zealand. But he literally tweeted a picture and said, here's a chart I'm thinking through. And he just drew it out on paper and said, here's what it looks like. And I thought, how cool would that be if we start soliciting like the community for like, show me what you want to build. Yeah, right here. Daniel's got one.
I use this guy. This is a remarkable, and I draw before I start building. Sometimes depends, but mostly I start with an idea and I draw it out. I can't show you the drawings because some of them are confidential. But, that's where I start. It's pen and paper.
Yes, and I would also echo that same thought. I mean, if you could talk a little bit more like high level, like how do you build a report? And Tommy's going to kind of go into this too, right? If you just dump a bunch of tables on your page, you're adding minimal to no value to people with what you're building. So you really want to be like intentional about like, what are the questions we're trying to ask? Do we need to define the insights? What is this visual going to tell me? And from there, we start shaping out. And literally, I love sitting down on paper and just doodling out these ideas, trying to put charts on a page, just kind of scrubbing out like what this thing will feel like. And then we have a higher level conversation instead of just talking about, well, I need this table and it has to have this data. And I think that's one of the things I see probably the biggest weakness in a lot of companies is we're just trying to use Power BI as a table dumping tool. And that's not necessarily the case. We have other, paginated reports. There's other ways of getting files of data out of these data models that I think are more appropriate than just straight up trying to rip out tables out of Power BI. Awesome. Great conversation. So I don't want to cut it off there. We've talked a lot about Charticulator. I do want to definitely pay homage here to another great visualization tool that came out this month. Wasn't announced on the Microsoft blog, but it was at the Power BI Summit, right? I think that was Daniel's, your project Deneb. Is that officially like a thing?
Yeah, I guess so. It's in public preview.
Yep.
So we probably don't want to turn this into too much of a thing, but
that's okay. There's only 15 people watching anyway, so we're good.
They might watch it later. So I've been fascinated with Charticulator for ages. And I'm not a research team at Microsoft that has quite a lot of resource and some amazing forward-thinking people. But what I have been a fan of is, the Washington Interactive Data Lab, the IDL guys, who came up with D3, or incubated D3, and another tool they've done is Vega, which is a declarative language for building visuals. So if you've worked with R and ggplot or Python and Seaborn, that kind of thing, it's all about similar concept, taking an idea and building it up. So this is a really well-established tool. It's used all over the place. It's platform agnostic. So, if you've developed skills in it elsewhere, much like R or Python.
Oh, I did it again.
Oh my goodness. And
Cliffhanger.
every time when he's in the best.
Yeah, right?
He's on a roll.
Daniel, come back to us, buddy. So I'll transition here just briefly. Daniel has made this amazing, it's basically writing code like you would in like an R or Python type language. Again, very established platforms like, again, Vega and this Vega Lite scenario. It's amazing. It's really cool. And again, Tommy, to what your point was earlier, like, hey, let's think about templates. Like, how do we share this stuff? Like, I'm actively working with Daniel to be like, how can we make this as easy as possible for someone to create something and then allow us to then share it across the community. And I think that's when a lot of this stuff starts like really turning up the volume here, because I don't, with everything in code, right? I go to Stack Overflow and find what I want to go write in DAX, and we'll go pull it from there, and or go over to SQL BI and figure out what they've written and kind of pull down some code. So I think a lot of that sharing part is like incredibly important.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, since the visualizations kind of had capped out here, we'll kick it back over.
Talk about DAX.
Yeah, let's talk about DAX. What else do we have that's coming out? Cross filter.
Yeah, they have updated a couple of DAX functions. So cross filters, yeah, they've now added support so that you can. I think they had options for switching relationships. So you could say cross filter and make this relationship bidirectional or one directional or none. I've used none in the past to switch off a relationship.
Okay.
I don't want that relationship active for this, and so I can say cross filter none.
Oh dang!
But they've added.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm rethinking my model. Michael just had a moment here where he's like, oh, I'm reevaluating my whole existence as a human, because I'm thinking I feel like I should have known this way earlier. Does anybody else know about this? Is this new information to me? That's cool.
Yeah, so you can sort of have, rather than having in the past you might have had inactive relationships and then use relationship to switch them on, you can sort of have a default. This works most of the time, but for this calc, I can do a calculate, my measure, and then cross filter with that none parameter to switch off the relationship. And
I'm gonna have to experiment with that.
I haven't used it yet, but they've added cross filter support when you're doing when you've got many-to-many relationships. You can say which direction you want it to go, from right to left or to left to right. So,
ooh, that seems helpful.
It's really cool that I think they're constantly adding functions and things. I mean, my history was back in multidimensional, and it was analysis services 2000 came out, and then we had to wait 5 years for 2005, and then 2008. So it was like
new things came out very slowly.
Yep.
So
mind you,
explain to me like
what was in each release.
Yeah, exactly. What's going on with the performance improvements for if and switch? Like, so I know there's like some kind of branching mechanism that goes along with it. Can you explain that a little bit more in detail? Like, what is it doing there that's making it faster for us?
Yeah, I'd love to find out a bit behind that, but most of what I know is just reading off the announcement that they've done work with, looks like with filter context, so with values and selected value.
Ah, okay.
They're able to short circuit a lot faster and eliminate branches that they don't need to evaluate. So
that makes a lot of sense, right? If you know what you're going to evaluate, don't they? And I think that was a problem for Switch for a while there. Switch was evaluating every branch for a while, and so if you had a lot of switch statements with a lot of heavy calculations for each of the switching, it was trying to evaluate all those things. So the query got really large, essentially. So this pruning, would this be called maybe like more aggressive pruning is what they're doing here?
Yeah, I think so. And doing that pruning earlier in the evaluation phase.
Sure.
They've been able to bring that work forwards. But yeah, initially when they did the tabular engine, they did a sort of a naive implementation of if that would evaluate the true and the false branches.
Sure.
And I think they did. I think it's been quite a while now that they've had that a short circuit evaluation where they only evaluate the branch that needs to be.
Totally makes sense. Make my switch statements faster.
They added back that, because they've got that if.eager.
Yes.
Now that goes back to the old behavior where it'll evaluate both sides.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can't. And again, this is probably why you do this. When you have a large system like this and many people are using it, if you're fundamentally, there he is. The internet has come back. Let's see if we can get it back in here. All right, Daniel. Let me ping you real quick here on the Teams window. All right. I think you were repinned.
Yeah, sorry. I had the mother of all internet outages then. Everything went wrong.
Oh, that's okay.
All the way back to the street.
It happens. I find that, again, this is one of these cases. Just throw more money at it, and it seems to fix itself.
I don't think you can do much about New Zealand's fiber other than unfortunately.
There's one or two lines. That's it. That's all you get. You can't fix that. Awesome.
Vision of Daniel running down the
Networking
street
through
with
the
the
house is
multimeter.
fantastic.
Nice.
Networking from the street, probably not so much.
Yeah, yes, true, exactly. We were just talking about the switch statements and the more aggressive pruning that's happening now inside the DAX functions.
Oh, lovely.
A lot of that.
I'm just catching up. That's not my bread and butter. I'm going to let you folks talk about that as if I'm not here.
Let's see what else we have. Some other DirectQuery for Power BI datasets is now. Sorry, let me say that again. DirectQuery for Power BI datasets and analysis services is now officially in preview.
With perspectives as well, I think.
Oh yeah, connecting to a perspective is additional.
Now you can actually, which I think is very helpful. First time I use that, you just get a ton of massive models, and it gets a bit overwhelming. I know there's a lot of ask, I think, and pretty awesome feature.
And
help a lot.
So help me understand the feature a little bit here, or for people who are watching, the perspective. Define for me like what the perspective is, and why are we trying to use a perspective versus not?
I don't know if Darren wants to take this one. He's probably
Punt.
A better definition. I can explain that. We have a bit more of an expert here.
Been asked it before.
Sure.
Perspective's basically a way of filtering your metadata. So it'll let you pick a subset of tables and columns and measures and say this is the sales information, or this is the executive view. So you can hide a lot of detail. So you can, and that's all it does, is it filters a subset of the data. So you can actually connect. You can see perspectives in the model drop down in DAX Studio, and if you have the show hidden columns and tables switched on, which is the default in DAX Studio, you'll see when you switch, all it does is hide and show columns. You'll see the metadata stuff just fades out and fades in as you switch. So that's all the perspectives are doing, are hiding and showing stuff.
And can you configure? You can't configure perspectives in desktop. That's not there. This is a pure tabular editor or DAX Studio play, right? Can you configure them both in both tools, or is it just one or the other? I don't know which one.
Yeah, I think it's it's definitely analysis services, and you can connect to them from Power BI, but yeah.
So you can. There is another use of perspectives in desktop as well. So when you have your personalized visuals, if you've ever played with that, you can use perspectives, which I would say always do that, in my opinion. So instead of somebody, it's a very overwhelming, especially for users who don't know, want to personalize a visual and they see every measure that's not hidden.
Okay, got it.
You can just say, hey, I only want you to be able to pick these fields to personalize this visual.
That's a great
self-service, but still a little managed.
Yes.
Now, so that's one kind of previous implementation perspectives.
And let me clarify there. Personalized visuals is on the report consumer side where we're doing this, right? Yeah. Okay. So you've
been out for a while, so not in this release. It was
exactly. So the idea here is you build a report, you build it with the visuals you want on the report page, and then when you publish the report to the service, the people in the service consuming that have the ability of then, if the setting's on, because it's a setting you actually have to turn on per report, allow the end user to change that visual type from whatever it was to something else. You know what? That's it. I was just recently teaching a class where I was teaching people to use a button to switch a visual between a table and a visual. This sounds like a better option to implement like table versus visual type implementations on a report. What do you think?
It can be, but still, while you're doing this, they can change data behind it. You can change from one measure to another one.
Sure.
You would have to create a perspective when you wouldn't allow them.
Gotcha.
But I'm not sure if it's what you want to learn them.
You need your users to understand it, I think. It's a powerful feature, but make sure you know your audience.
Sure.
I often just have a blank visual and say, here, you can create your own office perspective I give you. Again, they know your audience, know they're going to how, and they can pick the wrong visual, right? They can make a column chart over time and really annoy Daniel and do everything wrong. But,
I don't
Pie
that
charts
in
everywhere.
mind.
All pie charts. Nothing but pie charts.
Yeah.
I'm not as anti pie chart as some. I think that in the right situation, I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me. I think in the right situation, they can be useful, but they are overused.
Agreed. And I feel like I observe the higher up in the organizational chain I go, the more I'm getting requests for pie charts. Like analysts are like, okay, we know we don't need them. We want tables and bar charts. And then we get up to like VP and C levels. They're like, this would be great in a pie chart. Oh, wah.
I want to see what you can do in Charticulator. I want to see what you can do in Charticulator with the pie chart.
Oh yes, we could
Transform it. So.
we could do some pretty cool stuff.
You can do them.
So you can build them. There's an interesting thinking about like circular graphs in general. They make sense when you talk about things that are cyclical. Years make a lot of sense. So like when you start thinking about like data for a year, I think that's when circles make sense to me. However, I would say you got to be you can quickly get yourself into trouble because it's much harder to visualize things like a portion of a pie, right? You have to be very creative. So I've seen some really interesting visuals. Stephen Few is a gentleman that talks a lot about visual design and he has a book. If you haven't, or a couple books probably, if you haven't read his book, highly recommend it. It's super sharp. It helps you really think critically about the data and making sure that you don't over busy your report and you're only putting the essential things on the page. So I threw a link in there for the perspectives.
I'll have to dig out an example. I've got a radial visual that works quite well on Mike's theme, where it's almost like the rings of a tree. So I've got a nice visual that shows deviation of global temperature from an average taken across the 50s, and see how it changes from the 1800s through to today, and it's quite sobering.
Cool.
But it's represented quite well because you've got months of the year around the chart, so that's cyclical, and then we've got like a linear year axis, and it kind of expands outwards, which is quite a nice use case for radial visuals.
Well, I will sign you up. Episode 7. Episode 7 from Daniel. Charticulator with tree ring temperature rings.
You're gonna jump from bar charts to that.
I just did one last week around like TIE fighters. We had like 2 sticks and a little circle in the middle. Like this looks like a TIE fighter.
Have you guys tried?
I'm happy to jump on, Mike.
Going back to the perspectives with the live data set, have you guys tried to do that? Because I've created perspective, and then I tried to live connect, and then change the model to DirectQuery, but there's no way to actually choose the perspective in the Power BI desktop. Have you guys? I need to update the version again, but have you guys connected to a perspective with the Power BI data set yet?
I've not successfully actually.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is a tabular editor type only thing currently, or they've just got the functionality. I've tried doing it before this and it didn't work, but maybe now we can. So it'd be interesting to see.
So I did put in. So again, for those of you who you're following along and kind of online, there is a perspective support for personalized visuals preview, and I threw that out into the chat window. So I think that is the official documentation for what the features should do. And Tommy, based on what you asked there, it appears as though it is around building your perspective, and then once you have the personalized view of that perspective inside the paint roller, I think it's on the page. I can't tell if it's page or by visual, but it's allowing you to then go into this new personalized visual option, and then you have the ability to then say report reader perspective, and you're literally selecting it from like a drop-down menu, where I think then you start setting some of those additional properties. I'm with you though, Steve. I haven't played with it a ton, and probably need to do a bit more digging into the feature to see how I can leverage it.
Well, they've had it in the personalized visual, but according to the announcement, they said we've added the capability to connect to the perspective when making a DirectQuery connection. I think they made it
open it up more.
They've added the capability, but it's not available to do. So it's in the back end.
Gotcha.
That's what I think they meant. So
they have no documentation other than that. So
yeah,
I can't see anything.
But I mean, what they're doing with the Power BI data sets and the DirectQuery is such a game changer. I don't know if you guys have had the same kind of, or it's been the same impact for you guys, but that along with data flows has it's transformed some of our reports. We've actually migrated some of our reports from a local to literally connecting to 2 data sets because it just made more sense.
Awesome.
So I feel like this has not been talked about enough because of I think how from an enterprise point of view what this means.
It's transformed the architecture and the strategy rather than just it's the whole right back from planning out. I mean, there's a lot there.
I would say it's how Power BI is changing from self-service BI into enterprise BI, because this is the steps you have to done if you would like to build really, really massive the enterprise BI.
I think this is a good move. Honestly, I think it's very smart and logical for Microsoft to take this approach. This is one of the most asked about features, but I mean, you talk to the Microsoft guys. To do that, to DirectQuery to analysis services models was like a super heavy lift. There's a lot of code that need to be written in order to make that happen. So this has been in the plans and the works for quite a while now. And so now that we finally get the feature and start playing with it, I expect only better things to keep coming from this, right? This is going to continually just get better and easier for us to manage these things. And man, I love just managing one model. My only hesitation here is, and you guys may have some of the same feelings too, is when you have a model that gets really large, I have a hard time deprecating things out of the model. I feel like I need more like lineage-based information around like, if this is a model and these are my reports that hang off that model, where can I delete measures? What columns are physically not being used in any measures anywhere else? Like, how can I start scrubbing this thing to like clean it up more? And maybe that's just more of like being diligent on the front end, right? Being hypersensitive about not bringing in anything and only what you need. And then, as you're making changes, testing more thoroughly. And I think this is where you're bringing in like Tabular Editor, where you can do more DevOps like things, potentially can add a lot more capability here, because now you're not editing a Power BI file. Because how often have you gone in and added a filter to a slicer somewhere and you publish a report and like people are like, I can't see it in my data? Well, that's because there's a word entered into the report and it was published with the word into the report. So as we get more programmatic about these things and more IT centric around these deployment tools, I think that's going to be a really big help. Darren, what?
Yeah,
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tommy.
I was going to say, it's the same like when you create a few data flows to test things out, then you're really unsure which one to delete and trying to clean that up.
Yes, exactly.
No, I think like column dependencies, but I think, Stephen, what you said about the strategy behind building your reports and the architecture at a company, whether it's whether it's an enterprise or whether it's just your normal sized company, because it's quality of data, it's that management of the data that I think, and also just the ability to easily build your reports on something that you already know. Again, something that's been around forever with analysis service, but now using, for what majority of people are using is Power BI desktop, being a model-based tool. So
all right, MVPs. Here's the question. So, Raphael, I think that's how I say his name. Can you connect to 2 data models with a pro license in a workspace where you're at near 1 gigabyte max in size? So I think the question here is, I've got one data model that might be too big to handle for what I want to do. And if I break that model into 2 pieces, I could potentially connect to 2 models. Yeah, exactly. I got 2 models that are under the 1 gig limit, but still allow me to build reports with the 2 parts of the models. Is that supported in Pro? And do you think that's a good idea?
From my point of view, it could be possible, because every the limit is on workspace. So if you have the dataset in different workspaces, you're inside the limit, and you're just calling inside the different workspaces. But I'm not sure if it's a smart idea how to do it.
Yeah.
I think it might become more of a management nightmare, because you're now, if you're trying to like pare a model down and do 2 changes to the same model twice kind of thing, it might create some problems. I think mechanically, though, I mean, again, I'd be leaning maybe more on Darren on this question. I mean, you're going to get potentially that model may live on the same machine because it's inside the same analysis. So you're basically taking two models and putting it on the same cores that you're going to have regardless. So I'm not sure you're going to get like a huge boost in like super performance. It's not going to be like twice as fast kind of thing because it's still sitting on machines that can do that. However, when you're doing this, Power BI is going to split the queries into two pieces and run them. Like you're going to have a model that's in the Power BI report. You're going to have two models serving the data. So you're technically are getting more, I think it's called executors that can go do things on it. I don't know. Maybe I might be just talking smoke at this point.
Yeah, but the other thing you'll notice is that, you'll have that composite model on the two
Yes.
base models.
Yeah.
So the composite will go off and generate two DAX queries. So,
Yes.
Yeah. But those DAX queries, especially if you've joined on a high cardinality column, they can be massive. Marco sent me something sent me example query during the preview phase.
Sure.
That had a filter statement that was 150,000 characters long.
Oh my word.
So it actually hung DAX Studio when we pasted it in because the colorizer was trying to colorize 150,000. And it's built to colorize what you can see.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
The paste in DAX Studio now has an intelligent line breaker.
Oh, nice.
that will break lines sort of between strings or between if they get longer than sort of 500 characters.
Yeah. I'll try to.
So
Nice. But I mean, that's the point too. Like, so I mean, what it's doing there is if you're then passing the queries down to the two different composite models, if you say, select from the categories column, pants, shirts, and shoes, right? And you're doing some sort of calculation across both of them, it'll wrap up those items in that column, those values, and it'll push that list of items into each submodel to then execute queries against each of the submodels. So I think there's a lot more to learn here. Like this is pretty cutting edge stuff.
If they're linked to products and you've got 10,000 products, then you're sending queries saying, give me 10,000 data points that have to come back and then rolled up in the composite.
Exactly. So it sounds like
pull into
technically,
that
yes, you can use it to skirt under the 1 gigabyte limit. But I would probably recommend if you're going to be going that close to the edge on what's happening there, you may want to start looking at some premium level SKUs so you can get above that 1 gigabyte limit, or go to potentially looking at the EM SKU if you're embedding for your organization. That gives you premium things, and then you can embed your reports into like SharePoint and Teams, and you can have larger models there as well.
Yeah, that approach definitely sounds like it's worth $10 a month extra. So.
Or take a leaf out of Mike's book and try and deprecate some things you don't need from your model.
Yeah, exactly. delete all those unneeded columns, right? Just start deleting things, and if stuff breaks, then you needed it.
May not work in this case.
Do the screen test.
Yes, exactly.
Two screens and I've moved it.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. There's still a lot of other really great things we didn't get a chance to talk on. I think I talked on some of the really cool things that are coming out. Really appreciate your time. Again, I know your time is very valuable. I love hanging out with you guys. Love talking with you. You come with so many other perspectives on how this ecosystem works and what comes together here. So I really appreciate it. And with that, if you guys like the content that Power BI Tips is doing, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. We've got a whole other series that I'll try and throw in the chat window here for Charticulator level things, where we're going through that visual particularly and diving deep into it. Stay tuned. I'm going to sign Daniel up. He's already said he's doing it, so we're signing him up. We're going to sign him up for doing more Charticulator things, and then Deneb right on the hot tails of that to get into more another really, really awesome visualization program and tool. So guys,
I something's cursed about when I talk about anything really today, so I do apologize again for that issue. I'm sure you covered
the Charticulator team heard you talking about the Deneb, and they were like, "Oh, okay, we're going to start quick."
Yeah, they've got powers, man. They went all the way out to the street.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. Take care. Have a great week, and we'll see you next month with the next Power BI update.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Cheers, guys.
And thank you, Mike.